As the world slips into the quiet of night, let's journey to a land shrouded in mystery, a place where history whispers through guarded borders and silent cities. Picture a peninsula carved by time, where ancient mountains stand sentinel over a nation unlike any other. This is the story of North Korea, a tale of empires, ideologies, and enduring resilience, told in a way that invites you to drift into its depths, perhaps even into sleep. From the ancient kingdoms that once thrived under starlit skies to the modern enigma that captivates the world's imagination, we'll unravel the threads of a story that feels both distant and strangely intimate. This video is crafted for those who love history's embrace, for those who seek to understand the heart of a nation through its past, and for those who simply wish to let a soothing tale carry them into dreams. Imagine yourself standing on the edge of the Yalu River, its waters glinting under a crescent moon, as the silhouette of North Korea stretches before you. What secrets lie within its borders? What dreams and struggles have shaped its people? Tonight, we'll wander through centuries, from the mythical birth of a kingdom to the iron grip of a dynasty that holds fast even now. This is not just a history lesson, it's a story, one that breathes with the weight of human hopes, fears, and triumphs. Whether you're tucked into bed, winding down after a long day, or simply curious about a land so often misunderstood, this journey is for you. I'd love to know where you're listening from tonight. Drop a comment below. Where in the world are you, and what's the time there? Are you watching under a blanket of stars, or is the morning light just creeping in? Your stories make this channel a community, so share a piece of your world with us. And if you enjoy this deep dive into history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It helps keep these stories alive. So settle in, let the world fade, and let's step into the shadows of North Korea's past. Hello, my name is Sherry, and welcome to my channel. So let's begin. As the first light of dawn creeps over the jagged peaks of the Korean peninsula, imagine a land untouched by the clamor of modern life, a place where rivers carve their stories into the earth, and the wind carries whispers of a time long forgotten. Thousands of years ago, this rugged, mountainous land, cradled between the Yellow Sea and the Sea of Japan, was home to scattered tribes who lived in harmony with its untamed beauty. Their fires flickered under starlit skies, and their songs mingled with the rustle of ancient forests. This is where our story begins, in the cradle of a peninsula that would one day birth a nation both enigmatic and enduring. To understand North Korea, we must first travel back to its very origins, to a time when myth and history danced as one, and a people began to carve their place in the world. The tale begins with a legend, one that still lingers in the hearts of those who call this land home. In 2333 BCE, or so the story goes, a divine figure named Dangun descended from the heavens to found Gojoseon, the first kingdom of Korea. Born of a bear who became human through patience and prayer, Dangun was said to have ruled from the sacred slopes of Mount Baekdu, a volcanic peak that towers over the northern reaches of the peninsula. Its snow-capped summit, cradling a crystalline lake, was more than a mountain, it was a spiritual heart, a place where the gods touched the earth. Whether Dangun was a man, a myth, or something in between, his story gave the people of Gojoseon a sense of destiny, a belief that their land was chosen, special. The peninsula itself shaped these early people as much as they shaped it. To the north, the Yalu and Tumen rivers marked a natural boundary, their waters flowing like veins through the land, carrying trade and tailies from the vast steppes of Manchuria. To the south, fertile plains stretched toward the sea, where fishermen cast their nets and dreamed of distant shores. The mountains, rugged and unyielding, offered both protection and isolation, fostering a fierce independence among the tribes. These early inhabitants were skilled hunters, farmers, and craftsmen, their lives woven into the rhythm of the seasons. They forged tools from bronze, crafted pottery with intricate patterns, and buried their dead in dolmens, massive stone tombs that still dot the landscape, silent witnesses to a forgotten age. Archaeology tells us that Gojoseon was more than a myth. By the 8th century BCE, it had grown into a confederation of tribes, its influence stretching across the northern peninsula and into Manchuria. Its people traded with neighbors in China, learning the art of ironworking and adopting ideas that would shape their culture. Yet, Gojoseon was not a monolith. It was a patchwork of clans, each with its own chieftain, united by a shared reverence for the land and its spirits. Shamans mediated between the human and divine, their rituals binding communities through cycles of birth, harvest, and death. Imagine their voices rising in chant, the air thick with the scent of burning herbs, as they called upon ancestors to guide their people through uncertain times. But this was a land of ambition as well as reverence. As Gojoseon grew, so did its rivalries. Smaller tribes began to coalesce into stronger entities, their leaders dreaming of power beyond their valleys. By the 4th century BCE, Gojoseon faced challenges from within and without. To the west, the Chinese state of Yan pressed against its borders, its armies hungry for control of trade routes. Gojoseon's warriors, armed with iron swords and mounted on sturdy horses, fought to hold their ground, but the pressures of a changing world were mounting. The peninsula was no longer a quiet corner of the earth. It was becoming a stage for greater powers, a place where empires would clash and new kingdoms would rise. Picture a village at twilight, its thatched roofs glowing faintly in the fading light. A storyteller gathers the children around a fire, recounting the tale of Dangun and the bear, their eyes wide with wonder. Beyond the village, the mountains loom, their shadows stretching across the land like a promise of secrets yet to be told. This was a time of beginnings, of a people finding their voice in a world that was growing ever more complex. Gojoseon's legacy would not last forever, but it planted a seed, a sense of identity that would endure through centuries of triumph and turmoil. As the firelight fades and the night deepens, one question lingers. What would become of this ancient land as new powers rose to claim it? As the mists of morning curl around the peaks of the Korean peninsula, the land begins to stir with new ambitions. The ancient kingdom of Gojoseon, with its myths of divine founders and sacred mountains, has faded into the twilight of history, its tribes scattering like leaves on the wind. In its place, a new era dawns, one of rivalry, artistry, and the clash of swords. By the 1st century BCE, the peninsula is no longer a patchwork of clans, but a stage for 3 mighty kingdoms: Gojoseon, Juche, and Silla. Each carves its own destiny from the rugged earth, their banners fluttering against a sky that has seen centuries of dreams. This is the story of the 3 kingdoms, a time when the seeds of a Korean identity took root, nourished by both beauty and blood. Gojoseon, the northern giant, rises first, its heart beating in the shadow of Mount Baekdu. Founded in 37 BCE, it sprawls across the northern peninsula and into Manchuria, its people as fierce as the mountains they call home. Picture their fortresses perched on rocky cliffs, their walls built to withstand the howling winds and the ambitions of neighbors. Gojoseon's warriors, clad in leather armor and wielding curved swords, are renowned for their cavalry, charging across the plains with a thunder that shakes the earth. Their kings, men like Gyeonggi-do the Great, dream of a peninsula united under their rule, their conquests stretching as far as the Liao River. Yet Gojoseon is more than a warrior state. Its people paint vibrant murals in their tombs, depicting gods and heroes dancing among the stars, their colors still vivid after centuries. Buddhist temples rise, their golden statues gleaming in the dawn, as monks chant sutras that echo through the valleys. To the southwest, Baekdu emerges, its roots tracing to 18 BCE. Nestled along the fertile plains of the Han River, Baekdu is a kingdom of elegance and trade. Its capital, Wuri, bustles with merchants from China and beyond, their ships docking along the Yellow Sea to exchange silk, jade, and ideas. Baekdu's artisans craft delicate gold ornaments, their intricate designs a testament to a culture that values beauty as much as power. The kingdom's kings foster Buddhism, building temples like Muruksa, where stone pagodas stand like silent sentinels. Baekdu's diplomacy is as sharp as its swords, forging alliances with Japan's Yamato court, sending scholars and monks across the sea to spread their culture. Imagine a Baekdu palace at dusk, its wooden halls aglow with lamplight, as poets recite verses of love and loss, their words mingling with the scent of pine. In the southeast, Silla, founded in 57 BCE, begins as the smallest of the three but grows with quiet determination. Centered in Jeonju, a city cradled by rolling hills, Silla is a kingdom of discipline and devotion. Its people, known as the Hwarang, are young warriors trained in both martial arts and Confucian ideals, their loyalty to the king as unyielding as the granite of their homeland. Silla's early years are marked by caution, its leaders forging alliances to survive the shadow of Goguryeo might. Yet, Silla's culture blooms like the cherry blossoms that line its valleys. Its goldsmiths create crowns adorned with jade, symbols of a divine kingship, while astronomers study the stars from the Cheomseongdi Observatory, one of the oldest in the world. Picture a Silla festival, where dancers in flowing robes move to the rhythm of drums, their movements a prayer for prosperity. These three kingdoms, though bound by a shared peninsula, are as different as fire, water, and stone. Goguryeo's ambition clashes with Baekdu's elegance, while Silla bides its time, watching from the sidelines. Their borders shift like tides, marked by battles that leave fields stained red. The Battle of Hwangsanbeol in 660 CE, where Silla's forces face Baekdu's, is a tale of courage and betrayal, its outcome reshaping the peninsula's fate. Yet, even amidst war, the kingdoms share a common thread, a reverence for the land, its spirits, and the ancestors who watch from the heavens. Temples and palaces rise, each a testament to a people determined to leave their mark. As the three kingdoms vie for dominance, their stories weave a tapestry of triumph and tragedy. Goguryeo's warriors dream of empire, Baekdu's artists capture the fleeting beauty of life, and Silla's patient resolve grows stronger with each passing year. The peninsula pulses with life, its rivers and mountains bearing witness to a people forging their destiny. But as the stars wheel overhead, a question hangs in the air. Can these kingdoms coexist, or will one rise to claim the soul of the peninsula? As twilight settles over the rolling hills of Jeonju, the air hums with the soft chime of temple bells and the scent of blooming lotuses. The year is 668 CE, and the Korean peninsula, once fractured by the ambitions of Goguryeo, Baekdu, and Silla, now bends under the gentle but unyielding will of a single kingdom. Silla, the smallest of the three kingdoms, has risen like a quiet tide, uniting the peninsula under its banner. This is no tale of brute conquest alone, but of a golden age where art, faith, and wisdom flourish, leaving behind treasures that whisper of a time when Silla's light touched the heavens. Picture a city alive with the rhythm of creation, artisans hammering gold, monks transcribing ancient texts, and astronomers charting the stars. This is the story of Silla's triumph, a moment when the peninsula found harmony, if only for a fleeting breath. Silla's unification was no accident. It began with cunning alliances, none more pivotal than its partnership with Tang China. In 660 CE, Silla's King Maiyal, alongside Tang forces, struck a decisive blow against Baekdu, toppling its elegant courts. Goguryeo, the northern titan, fell 8 years later, its fortresses crumbling after a relentless campaign. But Silla's kings were not content to be puppets of the Tang. With deft diplomacy, they pushed back against Chinese dominance, securing the peninsula's autonomy by 676 CE. Imagine the scene. Silla's warriors, their armor gleaming in the dawn, standing atop the ruins of Goguryeo's fortresses, their banners fluttering in a wind that carried the promise of a new era. This was not just a victory of swords, but of a vision, a Korea united under Silla's ideals. Jeonju, Silla's capital, became the heart of this golden age. Nestled in a valley cradled by emerald hills, the city was a tapestry of tiled roofs, bustling markets, and sacred groves. At its center stood Bulguksa Temple, its wooden beams carved with intricate patterns, a testament to Silla's devotion to Buddhism. High above, on the slopes of Mount Toham, the Seokguram Grotto housed a serene Buddha statue, its stone face bathed in the first light of dawn, gazing eastward as if guarding the peninsula's soul. Pilgrims from across Asia traveled to kneel before it, their prayers mingling with the scent of incense. These sacred spaces were more than buildings. They were anchors, binding Silla's people to a shared faith that promised enlightenment amidst the chaos of the world. Silla's culture bloomed like the cherry blossoms that lined Jeonju's streets. Artisans crafted golden crowns, their delicate spangles shaped like tree branches, adorned with jade beads that clinked softly in the breeze. These were not mere ornaments, but symbols of a divine kingship, worn by rulers believed to be descended from the heavens. Scholars, trained in Confucian principles, recorded the kingdom's history in elegant calligraphy, their brushes dancing across silk scrolls. The Cheomseongdi Observatory, a graceful tower of precisely cut stones, stood as a beacon of Silla's curiosity, its astronomers mapping the stars to guide farmers and kings alike. Picture a night in Jeonju, the sky ablaze with constellations, as a young scholar gazes upward, dreaming of the cosmos and his place within it. Yet, Silla's golden age was not without its shadows. Unification brought peace, but it also demanded sacrifice. The fallen kingdoms of Beij and Goguryeo left behind proud peoples who chafed under Silla's rule. In the north, remnants of Goguryeo's warriors fled to form Balhi, a new state that carried the torch of their defiance. Within Silla, the rigid class system, known as the bone rank, divided nobles from commoners, sowing seeds of resentment. The Hwarang, Silla's elite warrior youth, trained in loyalty and sacrifice, but their songs of valor could not silence the murmurs of discontent. The kingdom's wealth, built on trade with Tang China and Japan, brought splendor but also inequality, as rice fields flourished for some while others toiled in their shadows. As Silla's golden age reached its zenith, it stood as a beacon of what the peninsula could be, a land of beauty, faith, and ambition. The streets of Jeonju echoed with the laughter of children, the chants of monks, and the clink of artisans' tools, each sound a thread in the tapestry of a unified Korea. But beneath this harmony, the weight of empire pressed heavy. The Tang dynasty watched from afar, their emissaries whispering of influence. Balhi's rise in the north hinted at old rivalries reborn. And within Silla's own borders, the cracks of division began to form, quiet but insistent. As the moon rises over Jeonju's golden roofs, a question lingers in the cool night air. How long can this fragile unity endure before the peninsula's heart begins to fracture once more? As the golden light of Silla's reign begins to fade, the peninsula turns its gaze northward, where new dreams take root beneath the shadow of ancient mountains. The year is 918 CE, and a warrior named Wang Jin stands on the banks of the Han River, his eyes fixed on a horizon brimming with possibility. Silla's unity, once a beacon of hope, has crumbled under the weight of rebellion and division, its nobles fractured by greed and ambition. From this chaos rises the Goryeo dynasty, a kingdom that will lend its name to the land we now call Korea. Picture a realm where Buddhist temples gleam against emerald hills, where scholars carve sacred texts into wooden blocks, and where the threat of invasion looms like a storm on the edge of the sky. This is the story of Goryeo, a time of brilliance and resilience when the peninsula's soul was forged anew. Wang Jin, crowned King Tijo, was no ordinary leader. Born of a merchant family, he rose through the ranks of a fractured Silla, his charisma and military prowess uniting warlords and peasants alike. By 936 CE, he had defeated his rivals, absorbing the remnants of Silla and the northern state of Balhi into a single kingdom. Goryeo's capital, Gojoseon, became a bustling hub, its wooden gates opening to traders from Song China and distant Arabia. Imagine the city at dawn, merchants haggling over silk and porcelain in crowded markets, monks chanting in hillside temples, and royal envoys riding out to secure alliances. Tijo's vision was clear, a Korea that balanced tradition with ambition, its people bound by a shared pride in their land. Goryeo's heart was its devotion to Buddhism, which shaped every facet of life. Temples like Jumsansa and Hyeonsa rose as centers of learning, their roofs curving gracefully toward the heavens. Monks, clad in saffron robes, transcribed sutras by lamplight, their work preserving the wisdom of the Buddha for generations. The Tripitaka Korina, a monumental collection of Buddhist scriptures carved onto over 80,000 wooden blocks, stands as Goryeo's greatest legacy. Picture the artisans at work, their chisels etching sacred words into cedar, each stroke a prayer for enlightenment. This was no mere act of faith, but a declaration of Goryeo's cultural might, a treasure that would survive fire, war, and time itself. The kingdom's artistry was equally breathtaking. Goryeo celadon, pottery glazed in shades of jade green, captured the beauty of the natural world. Lotus flowers, cranes, and flowing rivers etched into clay. These pieces, prized across Asia, were more than objects. They were stories, each vessel a glimpse into the soul of a people who saw divinity in the curve of a leaf or the ripple of a stream. In the royal court, poets composed verses in the shadow of cherry blossoms, their words weaving tales of love and loyalty. Meanwhile, Goryeo's astronomers and mathematicians refined their craft, their calculations guiding farmers through planting seasons and kings through diplomacy. Yet, Goryeo's splendor was tempered by peril. To the north, the Khitan Liao Empire cast a long shadow, their cavalry raids testing Goryeo's borders. In the 11th century, the Liao invaded, their armies sweeping across the Yalu River like a tide. Goryeo's warriors, led by generals like Gang Gamchan, fought with desperate courage, their victories at battles like Kuju in 1018 CE preserving the kingdom's independence. These clashes left scars, villages burned, families torn apart, but they also forged a fierce resilience. Imagine a soldier returning home, his armor dented, to find his village rebuilding under the watchful gaze of a Buddhist statue, its stone face a symbol of hope amidst loss. Goryeo's internal struggles were no less daunting. The rigid class system, inherited from Silla, divided nobles from commoners, sowing tension in the rice fields and city streets. Military leaders, grown powerful in the face of external threats, began to challenge the throne, their ambitions threatening to unravel Tijo's dream. By the 12th century, the kingdom faced another trial, the Mongol invasions. The Mongol Empire, a storm from the steppes, demanded tribute and submission. Goryeo's kings, caught between pride and survival, negotiated a delicate peace, sending tribute while preserving their sovereignty. Picture a royal envoy riding across the plains, his heart heavy with the knowledge that peace came at the cost of gold and grain. As Goryeo's story unfolds, it is a tale of balance, between faith and power, art and war, independence and survival. Joseon's lanterns glow late into the night, their light reflecting on the faces of a people who refuse to bend. The Tripitaka Korina, still hidden in Heinz's halls, stands as a testament to their spirit, each wooden block a whisper of endurance. But as the Mongols' shadow grows longer and the kingdom's unity frays, a question hangs heavy in the air. Can Goryeo's light endure the gathering storm, or will the peninsula once again be reshaped by forces beyond its control? As the embers of Goryeo's glory fade into the twilight of the 14th century, the Korean peninsula stands at a crossroads, its fields weary from war and its people yearning for stability. The Mongol yoke, though loosened, has left scars, and Goryeo's once proud court is riddled with corruption, its nobles squabbling over dwindling power. Into this restless land steps a man named Joseon, a general whose bow has turned back invaders and whose heart dreams of a new order. In 1392, he ascends the throne as King Tijo, founding the Joseon dynasty, a realm that will shape Korea's soul for over 5 centuries. Picture a kingdom where Confucian scholars pen treatises under lanternlit eaves, where a new alphabet is born to give voice to the common folk, and where the seeds of a proud yet troubled legacy are sown. This is the story of Joseon's rise, a time when the peninsula sought harmony but found itself wrestling with its own ideals. Joseon's rise was no gentle ascent. A warrior hardened by battles against Mongols and Japanese pirates, he was a man of the people, born far from the gilded halls of Goryeo's elite. When he seized power, it was not through brute force alone, but with the support of scholars and reformers who saw in him a chance to rebuild. Joseon, Goryeo's capital, gave way to Hanyang, modern-day Seoul, a city nestled between mountains and the Han River, its geomantic placement chosen to bring prosperity. Imagine the bustle of Hanyang's early days. Carpenters hammering wooden beams for the Gyeongbokgung Palace, its gates rising like a promise of order, farmers hauling rice to new markets, and Confucian scholars debating the principles that would guide the new dynasty. Joseon was to be a kingdom of virtue, where loyalty to the king and harmony among the people would replace the chaos of the past. At the heart of Joseon's vision was Confucianism, a philosophy that prized duty, hierarchy, and moral governance. Unlike Goryeo Buddhist fervor, Joseon's rulers saw Confucianism as a blueprint for a stable society. Temples gave way to academies, where scholars studied ancient Chinese texts, their brushes scratching out arguments on ethics and governance. The Yongbin, a class of scholar officials, became the backbone of the state, their education and loyalty earning them land and influence. Yet, this rigid hierarchy cast long shadows. Commoners toiled in rice paddies, their lives bound by taxes and labor, while the Yongbin's privilege grew. Picture a village at harvest time, the air thick with the scent of ripened grain, as a farmer bows to a passing Yongbin, his heart heavy with unspoken resentment. Joseon's golden moment came under King Sejong the Great, who ascended the throne in 1418. A scholar king with a poet's soul, Sejong dreamed of a Korea where knowledge was not the privilege of the elite, but the birthright of all. In 1443, he unveiled Hangul, a script so simple yet ingenious that it could be learned in a single day. Unlike the complex Chinese characters reserved for the learned, Hangul gave voice to the common people, farmers, merchants, and women who had been silenced by illiteracy. Imagine a mother in a thatched hut, her fingers tracing Hangul letters in the dirt, teaching her child to write their name for the first time. Sejong's court also birthed innovations: rain gauges to predict harvests, astronomical instruments to map the heavens, and histories to preserve the nation's story. His reign was a beacon, a time when Joseon seemed to touch the stars. Yet even Sejong's light could not banish the shadows. The Yongbin's power grew, their landholdings swallowing villages, while factionalism crept into the court. Scholars, once united in reform, split into rival camps, their debates turning to plots and purges. The common people, though gifted with Hangul, bore the weight of taxes and conscription, their lives tethered to the land. Beyond Joseon's borders, the world was stirring. To the north, the Ming dynasty watched with wary eyes. Their tribute demands a reminder of Korea's delicate place in a vast world. To the east, Japan's warlords sharpened their swords, their gaze turning toward the peninsula. Joseon's kings, cloaked in Confucian ideals, sought to fortify their realm, building fortresses along the coast and training armies in the mountains. As Joseon took root, its people lived in a world of contrasts: order and inequality, innovation and tradition. Hanyang's palaces glowed with candlelight, their halls filled with the murmur of scholars and the clink of royal banquets. Beyond the city, farmers worked the fields, their songs carried on the wind, while monks in dwindling Buddhist temples prayed for a kingdom they feared was forgetting its past. The dynasty's foundations were strong, but they rested on a fragile balance. As the stars rose over Gyeongbokgung's curved roofs, a quiet unease settled over the land. The world beyond the peninsula was growing restless, and Joseon, for all its dreams of harmony, would soon face trials that would test its very soul. What would happen when the winds of invasion swept across the sea? As the sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the rice fields of Joseon, the Korean peninsula hums with the quiet rhythm of a kingdom striving for balance. It is the late 16th century, and the Joseon dynasty, now 2 centuries old, stands as a beacon of Confucian order. Its palaces in Hanyang aglow with the flicker of lanterns. Farmers tend their crops, scholars debate in the halls of Gyeongbokgung, and the Hangul script spreads like a gentle wave, giving voice to the common folk. Yet beneath this calm, a storm gathers across the sea. From the islands of Japan, a warlord's ambition stirs, his eyes fixed on the peninsula as a prize to be claimed. This is the story of the Imjin War, a time when Joseon faced the fire of invasion, its people rising with courage and sacrifice to defend their land, only to find scars that would linger for generations. In 1592, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, Japan's ruthless unifier, unleashed his dream of conquest. Having subdued his own fractured nation, he sought to carve a path through Korea to challenge Ming China, envisioning an empire that stretched across Asia. His armies, hardened by years of civil war, landed on Joseon's southern coast like a tidal wave. Busan fell swiftly, its defenses crumbling under the weight of samurai swords and arquebus fire. Picture the chaos. Fishing villages reduced to ash, their wooden boats splintered on the shore, farmers fleeing inland, their cries swallowed by the thunder of marching feet. Joseon's army, unprepared and outmatched, retreated northward, leaving a trail of burning fields and broken hopes. By spring, Hideyoshi's forces had seized Hanyang, the capital's palaces looted, their tiled roofs collapsing into embers. Yet, Joseon was not a land to yield easily. From the ashes rose a figure who would become legend, Admiral Yi Sun-sin, a naval commander whose genius would turn the tide. Operating from the southwestern coast, Yi crafted a fleet of turtle ships, ironclad vessels with spiked roofs and cannons that roared like dragons. Imagine the scene at the Battle of Myeongnyang in 1597. Yi, with just 13 ships, facing a Japanese armada of over 130. The narrow strait churned with waves, the air thick with gunpowder smoke, as his turtle ships cut through the enemy like a blade through silk. His tactics, luring the Japanese into treacherous currents, striking with precision, shattered their naval might, securing Joseon's southern waters. His diary, written in the quiet of his tent, reveals a man driven by duty, his heart heavy with the weight of lives lost, yet unwavering in his resolve. On land, the war was no less fierce. Common folk, from farmers to monks, formed righteous armies, wielding spears and scythes to harass Japanese garrisons. Picture a mountain pass at dusk, where a band of villagers, led by a grizzled warrior priest, ambushes a samurai patrol, their shouts echoing through the pines. These guerrilla fighters, fueled by love for their homeland, struck fear into the invaders, proving that Joseon's spirit could not be broken by steel alone. Meanwhile, Ming China, Joseon's ally, sent reinforcements, their heavy cavalry thundering across the northern plains to push back the Japanese advance. The war became a grueling stalemate, each side digging in, the peninsula a scarred battlefield where hope and despair walked hand in hand. The Imjin War, stretching from 1592 to 1598 with a brief truce in between, left Joseon battered. A second invasion in 1597, though less devastating, compounded the toll. Cities lay in ruins, their markets silent. Farmland turned to wasteland, leaving families to starve in the shadow of once thriving villages. Historians estimate that hundreds of thousands perished, soldiers, civilians, and invaders alike, their stories lost in the smoke of war. Artisans, scholars, and potters were taken to Japan as captives, their skills enriching a foreign land while Joseon mourned their loss. The Gyeongbokgung Palace, once a symbol of Joseon's pride, stood half destroyed, its halls echoing with the ghosts of a shattered peace. Yet even in defeat, there was resilience. Admiral Yi's victories at sea ensured Joseon's survival, though he paid the ultimate price, struck by a bullet in the Battle of Noryang in 1598, his final words urging his men to fight on. The war ended with Japan's withdrawal, but the cost was etched into the peninsula's soul. Families rebuilt their homes, brick by brick, their hands calloused but their spirits unbroken. Scholars began to pen histories of the war, their brushes trembling with pride and sorrow, preserving the tales of heroes like Yi for generations yet to come. The war had tested Joseon's heart, revealing both its fragility and its strength, but it also left a question hanging in the air like the smoke of a dying fire. Could a kingdom so scarred ever reclaim its dreams of harmony, or would the shadows of invasion linger, waiting to rise again? As the echoes of war fade into the quiet of the 17th century, the Korean peninsula breathes a weary sigh. The Imjin War has left Joseon scarred, its fields fallow, its cities half rebuilt, and its people haunted by memories of fire and steel. The Gyeongbokgung Palace, though partially restored, stands as a somber reminder of the kingdom's trials, its once vibrant halls now hushed under the weight of loss. The Joseon dynasty, battered but unbroken, turns inward, seeking solace in a world it can control. The outside world, Japan, China, and distant lands beyond, has brought only pain, and so the kingdom closes its gates, earning a name that will linger through history. The Hermit Kingdom. Picture a land where the rhythm of life slows, where Confucian rituals guide each day, and where the mountains themselves seem to guard against the chaos beyond. This is the story of Joseon's isolation, a time of introspection and resilience, but also of shadows that grow long in a closed world. The decision to turn inward was not made in a single moment, but grew from a deep well of distrust. The Japanese invasions had shown the cost of vulnerability, and the Ming dynasty, Joseon's erstwhile ally, was weakening, its own borders threatened by the rising Manchu in the north. Joseon's kings, led by figures like King Seonjo and his successors, chose to fortify their realm both physically and spiritually. Coastal defenses were strengthened, their cannons trained on the sea that had once carried invaders. Trade with Japan was curtailed, limited to tightly controlled exchanges through the port of Busan, where Japanese envoys were watched with wary eyes. Imagine a lone ship docking at dawn, its crew met by Joseon officials, their faces stern as they inspect goods and letters, ensuring no threat slips through. Within the kingdom, Confucianism tightened its grip, becoming not just a philosophy but a way of life. The Yongbin, the scholar elite, wielded influence over every aspect of society, from the royal court to the humblest village. Their academies, or seoin, dotted the countryside, their wooden halls filled with the murmur of debates on morality and governance. Rituals governed daily life, ceremonies for ancestors, weddings, and harvests, each a thread in the tapestry of order. Picture a rural village at twilight, where families gather around ancestral tablets, offering rice and prayers under the watchful gaze of a Yongbin landlord. These rituals bound communities together, but they also reinforced a rigid hierarchy, where commoners and slaves toiled under the weight of tradition, their dreams confined by the boundaries of their birth. Joseon's isolation fostered a cultural richness that glowed like a lantern in the dark. Scholars produced histories, like the annals of the Joseon dynasty, their meticulous records capturing the kingdom's triumphs and struggles in elegant prose. Painters depicted the peninsula's landscapes, misty mountains, winding rivers, and cherry blossoms in bloom, their brushstrokes a love letter to the land. Artisans crafted lacquered furniture, their inlaid designs of cranes and peonies gleaming in the firelight. In the markets of Hanyang, merchants sold ginseng and silk, their wares a reminder of Joseon's self-sufficiency. The Hangul script, Sejong's gift, spread further, allowing poets and storytellers to weave tales in the language of the people. Imagine a young girl in a hanbok, her fingers tracing Hangul letters on a scroll, her voice soft as she reads a poem of longing for a world she will never see. Yet, isolation came at a cost. The world beyond Joseon was changing, its currents carrying new ideas and dangers. The Manchu, having toppled the Ming to establish the Qing dynasty by 1644, demanded tribute, forcing Joseon into a humiliating vassalage. Picture a royal envoy kneeling before a Qing emperor, his heart burning with pride as he hands over gold and hostages, knowing his kingdom's independence hangs by a thread. Within Joseon, the rigid Confucian order stifled innovation. The Yongbin's dominance left little room for dissent or reform, and the peasantry, burdened by taxes, began to whisper of rebellion. Buddhist temples, once vibrant, faded into the shadows, their monks marginalized as Confucianism eclipsed their influence. The kingdom's closed borders preserved its culture, but also trapped it in time, like a flower pressed between the pages of a book. As the 17th century gave way to the 18th, Joseon stood as a fortress of tradition, its people bound by a shared identity, yet divided by class and hardship. Hanyang's streets bustled with life, but the air carried a quiet unease. The world beyond the peninsula was growing louder. Qing China's power, Japan's stirrings, and whispers of strange ships from distant lands called Europe. In the villages, farmers looked to the skies, praying for rain and peace, while scholars debated how to protect their kingdom's soul. The Hermit kingdom had found strength in its solitude, but as the stars rose over Hanyang's tiled roofs, a question lingered like a shadow on the horizon. Could Joseon remain a world apart forever, or would the tides of change force its gates open once more? As the 19th century dawns, the Korean peninsula lies cloaked in the quiet embrace of Joseon's isolation, its people moving to the rhythm of Confucian rituals and ancestral traditions. Hanyang's Gyeongbokgung Palace stands resolute, its tiled roofs catching the first light of morning, while farmers in distant villages toil under the weight of taxes and tradition. The Hermit Kingdom has carved a world of its own, its borders guarded by mountains and mistrust, its heart beating to the cadence of a carefully ordered society. But the world beyond is no longer content to leave Joseon in peace. Across the seas and steppes, new powers stir, empires with iron ships and ambitions that stretch far beyond their shores. This is the story of a kingdom facing the first tremors of a changing world, as the West, Japan, and even its northern neighbors knock at Joseon's gates, their presence a whisper of upheaval to come. The early 19th century finds Joseon under the shadow of the Qing dynasty, its nominal overlord. The Qing, though powerful, are weakening, their empire strained by internal revolts and the growing presence of Western traders. Joseon's kings, like Hyeonjong and Cheoljong, navigate this delicate balance, sending tribute to Beijing while striving to preserve their autonomy. Picture a royal procession winding through the northern hills, laden with silk and ginseng, its envoys bowing before Qing officials with practiced humility, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that their kingdom's independence is a fragile thing. Yet the Qing are not the only ones watching. From the west, ships with strange flags, British, French, American, begin to appear off Joseon's coasts, their cannons gleaming in the sun, their crews curious and insistent. These Western encounters are jarring, like stones cast into a still pond. In 1866, the American schooner General Sherman sails up the Taedong River, seeking trade near Pyongyang. The local governor, wary of foreigners, orders an attack. Imagine the scene. Flames licking the ship's hull as Joseon soldiers, armed with muskets and resolve, drive the intruders back, the river reflecting the blaze like a warning. The incident, though small, sends ripples across the world, painting Joseon as a land resistant to outsiders. France, too, tests Joseon's resolve, landing troops on Gangwa Island in retaliation for the execution of Catholic missionaries. The kingdom's defenders, wielding outdated weapons but fierce determination, repel the invaders, their victories bolstering the belief that isolation can protect their way of life. Yet the most persistent pressure comes from Japan, newly transformed by the Meiji Restoration of 1868. No longer the fractured land of samurai, Japan emerges as a modern power, its eyes fixed on the peninsula as a stepping stone to greater ambitions. In 1876, Japanese warships anchor off Gangwa, their demands for trade backed by the threat of steel. Joseon's court, led by King Gojong and his regent father, the Daewongun, is divided. Some urge defiance, others caution openness. The Treaty of Gangwa, signed under duress, opens Joseon's ports to Japanese trade, cracking the Hermit Kingdom's shell. Picture a marketplace in Busan, once quiet, now bustling with Japanese merchants, their goods, cotton, rifles, ideas mingling uneasily with Joseon's traditions. Within Joseon, the strain of these intrusions sparks a crisis of identity. The Yangban elite, steeped in Confucian orthodoxy, cling to the old ways, their scrolls and rituals a bulwark against change. But a new generation, inspired by whispers of Western science and Japanese reforms, begins to dream of a modern Korea. Scholars like those of the Silhak movement, practical learning, call for reforms to strengthen the kingdom, from land redistribution to military modernization. Imagine a young scholar in a Hanyang tea house, his voice low but urgent, arguing for change as his elders shake their heads, their loyalty to tradition unshaken. Meanwhile, the common people bear the brunt of this turmoil. Taxes rise to fund defenses, and famines gnaw at the countryside, fueling uprisings like the Donghak Rebellion of 1894, where peasants, wielding bamboo spears, demand justice from a court that seems deaf to their cries. The world's knocking grows louder, each encounter chipping away at Joseon's isolation. American missionaries bring Christianity, their chapels rising in quiet corners, while Qing and Japanese influence vie for dominance in Hanyang's court. King Gojong, now ruling in his own right, moves to the new Gyeongbokgung Palace, its Western-style architecture a symbol of a kingdom caught between past and future. The air is thick with tension, as if the peninsula itself senses the storm approaching. Farmers in the fields look to the horizon, their prayers for peace mingling with the wind, while scholars debate whether to embrace or resist the tides of change. As the century draws to a close, Joseon stands at the edge of a precipice, its gates forced open, its soul exposed to a world that will not wait. What will become of this ancient kingdom when the full weight of the modern age crashes upon its shores? As the 19th century fades into the dawn of the 20th, the Korean peninsula trembles under the weight of a world that will no longer be held at bay. Joseon, once the Hermit kingdom, stands with its gates forced open, its people caught in a whirlwind of foreign ambitions and internal strife. Hanyang's Gyeonggangung Palace, with its blend of Confucian elegance and Western brick, mirrors a kingdom struggling to find its place in a rapidly changing age. King Gojong, now declared emperor of the newly named Korean Empire in 1897, dreams of a sovereign nation, modern and strong. Yet the tides of history are merciless, and the peninsula is no longer its own master. From across the sea, Japan's shadow grows ever darker, its modernized armies and imperial hunger poised to engulf Korea. This is the story of Joseon's final days, a tale of resistance, betrayal, and a people's enduring spirit as their dynasty crumbles under the weight of conquest. The Korean Empire was a bold but fragile gesture. Gojong's declaration sought to elevate Korea to the status of its neighbors, shedding the vassalage of Qing China and asserting independence. Reforms swept through the court. Military uniforms modernized, telegraph lines strung across cities, and schools teaching Western sciences sprang up in Hanyang. Picture a young student in a newly built classroom, his eyes wide as he studies maps of a world far beyond the peninsula, his heart swelling with hope for a stronger Korea. Yet these reforms were too little, too late. The Yongbin elite, entrenched in their Confucian privileges, resisted change, while the treasury strained under the cost of modernization. In the countryside, peasants, stirred by the Donghak rebellion's call for justice, watched warily, their trust in the throne eroded by years of hardship. Japan, now a rising power, saw Korea not as a partner but as a prize. The Treaty of Ganghwa in 1876 had opened the door, but Japan's ambitions grew bolder with each passing year. The First Sino-Japanese War of 1894-1895, fought partly on Korean soil, ended Qing dominance over the peninsula, leaving Japan as the unchallenged predator. By 1905, after defeating Russia in the Russo-Japanese War, Japan's grip tightened. The Juche Treaty, signed under coercion, made Korea a Japanese protectorate, stripping it of diplomatic sovereignty. Imagine the scene in Gyeonggangung's throne room. Gojong, his face etched with defiance, surrounded by Japanese officials with cold eyes and drawn swords, forced to sign away his nation's freedom. Ministers who resisted were bribed or threatened, their loyalty to Korea drowned in fear. The annexation came in 1910, a final blow to Joseon's heart. The Japan-Korea Treaty, signed on August 22, dissolved the Korean Empire, reducing Gojong to a figurehead before he was forced to abdicate in favor of his son, Sunjong. Hanyang, renamed Keijo, became a colonial capital, its palaces repurposed for Japanese governors. The Korean flag was replaced with the rising sun, and the peninsula's name, Korea, became a mere province of the Japanese Empire. Picture the streets of Hanyang, once alive with the chatter of merchants and scholars, now patrolled by Japanese soldiers, their boots echoing on cobblestones where poets once walked. Korean language and history were banned from schools, replaced with Japanese curricula designed to erase a nation's identity. Names were changed. Kim became Kin, Park became Pak, as if a people could be rewritten. Yet the Korean spirit refused to break. Resistance flared like sparks in the dark. In 1919, the March 1st movement saw thousands take to the streets, waving forbidden Korean flags and chanting for independence. Picture a young woman in a hanbok, her voice rising in a crowd outside Deoksugung Palace, her courage defying the rifles of Japanese police. The protests, though brutally suppressed, sent a message to the world. inspiring exiles in Shanghai to form a provisional government. Guerrilla fighters in the northern mountains, near the Yalu River, struck at Japanese outposts, their raids a whisper of defiance. Intellectuals smuggled books in Hangul, preserving their language in secret, while farmers hid ancestral tablets, guarding their heritage from oblivion. The cost of occupation was heavy. Korean laborers were conscripted to toil in Japanese factories and mines, their bodies broken by exhaustion. Women, euphemistically called comfort women, suffered unspeakable horrors, their stories silenced for decades. Temples and shrines were destroyed or repurposed, and Korea's cultural treasures, pottery, scrolls, relics, were carted off to Tokyo. Yet, even in this darkness, there was resilience. Families gathered in secret to sing folk songs, their voices soft but unbroken. Exiled scholars in Manchuria and Shanghai penned manifestos, dreaming of a free Korea. The peninsula, though chained, pulsed with a quiet strength, its people clinging to the hope of a dawn beyond the horizon. As the Japanese flag flew over Hanyang's silent palaces, the soul of Korea endured, hidden in the hearts of its people. The mountains, rivers, and fields, unchanging witnesses to centuries of struggle, stood as a promise that this was not the end. But as the world marched toward a new war, one that would engulf empires and redraw maps, a question hung heavy in the air. Could Korea's spirit, tempered by loss, rise again to reclaim its destiny? Or would the peninsula remain a pawn in the hands of greater powers? As the embers of World War II fade in 1945, the Korean peninsula stands on the edge of a new dawn, its people weary from decades of Japanese occupation. The air carries a fragile hope, as if the mountains themselves are holding their breath. Japan's surrender to the Allies has shattered the chains of colonial rule, and for a fleeting moment, Korea dreams of freedom, a unified nation, whole and sovereign, as it was in the days of Goryeo and Joseon. But the world has other plans. Great powers, their ambitions sharpened by victory, cast long shadows over the peninsula. In a matter of weeks, Korea is cleaved in two, its fate decided by lines drawn on a map far from its shores. This is the story of a nation divided, where the seeds of modern North Korea are sown, and the peninsula's heart is torn between competing visions of the future. The division begins almost by accident, a hasty decision born of wartime expediency. In August 1945, as Japan's empire collapses, the United States and the Soviet Union agree to divide Korea along the 38th parallel, a line chosen with little regard for the land's history or people. The Soviets occupy the north, the Americans the south, each promising to oversee a transition to independence. Picture the scene. Soviet troops, their red stars gleaming, march into Pyongyang, greeted by cautious crowds waving makeshift flags, while American soldiers land in Incheon, their jeeps rumbling through Seoul's war-torn streets. The peninsula, so long a pawn of foreign powers, now finds itself split between two ideologies, communism and capitalism, each eager to shape its future. In the north, the Soviets find a land of rugged mountains and industrial cities, its people hardened by years of resistance. Pyongyang, once a center of Christian missionary work, now pulses with the energy of liberation. The Soviets, led by pragmatic officers, seek a leader to steer this new Korea. They turn to Kim Il-sung, a young guerrilla fighter who spent years battling the Japanese in Manchuria. Charismatic and ambitious, Kim returns to Pyongyang in 1945, his name already a whisper among the northern hills. Imagine him stepping off a Soviet ship, his eyes scanning the crowds, sensing the weight of destiny. Backed by Moscow, he begins to consolidate power, rallying workers and peasants with promises of land reform and equality. The north buzzes with change. Factories hum, land is redistributed, and Soviet advisors guide the creation of a socialist state. In the south, the Americans establish a military government, their focus on stability rather than ideology. Seoul becomes a hub of activity, but the transition is chaotic. The U.S. backs conservative leaders, many tainted by collaboration with the Japanese, sparking resentment among a people hungry for justice. Protests erupt, their chants echoing through markets and rice fields, demanding a Korea free from foreign influence. Meanwhile, the 38th parallel hardens into a border, splitting families and villages. Picture a farmer standing at the line, his fields bisected by barbed wire, waving to relatives he may never see again. The division, meant to be temporary, takes root as Cold War tensions between the US and the Soviet Union turn the peninsula into a chessboard. By 1948, the divide is formalized. In the South, the Republic of Korea is born under Syngman Rhee, a fiercely anti-communist leader backed by Washington. In the North, Kim Il-sung proclaims the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK, its red, blue, and white flag raised over Pyongyang. Each claims to be the true Korea, their rhetoric fiery but their people weary. The North, under Kim's iron grip, moves swiftly toward socialism. Landlords lose their estates, factories are nationalized, and portraits of Kim begin to appear in homes and squares. Imagine a Pyongyang street, its walls plastered with posters of workers raising hammers, their faces alight with revolutionary zeal. Yet, beneath the fervor, whispers of dissent linger. Former landowners, religious leaders, and intellectuals wary of Kim's growing power. The division brings both hope and heartbreak. In the North, Kim's reforms lift peasants from poverty, giving them land and a voice, but his purges silence those who question his vision. In the South, Rhee's government promises democracy, but leans on repression, alienating the very people it claims to serve. Across the peninsula, families send letters across the 38th parallel, their words heavy with longing, while soldiers on both sides patrol a border bristling with tension. The Yalu River, once a trade route, now marks a frontier between worlds, capitalism and communism, hope and fear. The peninsula, so long a single heartbeat, now pulses with two rhythms, each pulling in opposite directions. As the late 1940s give way to 1950, the air grows thick with foreboding. Skirmishes flare along the 38th parallel, each side testing the other's resolve. Kim Il-sung, emboldened by Soviet support, dreams of reuniting Korea under his banner, while Rhee speaks of marching north. The great powers, America, the Soviet Union, and a rising China, watch closely, their own ambitions entwined with Korea's fate. In Pyongyang, the lights burn late, as Kim and his generals pore over maps, their voices low but urgent. In Seoul, protests and purges cast a shadow over the promise of freedom. The peninsula stands on the edge of a precipice, its people caught in a storm not of their making. As the mountains loom silent under a starlit sky, a question hangs heavy. Will this divided land find peace, or will it be consumed by the flames of a new war? As the summer of 1948 blankets the Korean peninsula, the northern half pulses with a new rhythm, one born of revolution and resolve. The 38th parallel, once an arbitrary line drawn by distant powers, now marks a profound divide, splitting families, fields, and dreams. In Pyongyang, a city of broad avenues and war-scarred buildings, a new nation rises from the ashes of Japanese occupation. On September 9, 1948, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK, is proclaimed, its red, blue, and white flag unfurling over a land that has known too much suffering. At its helm stands Kim Il-sung, a guerrilla hero turned statesman, his vision of a socialist utopia backed by Soviet steel and fueled by a people's hunger for change. This is the story of North Korea's birth, a time when hope and ambition mingled with the seeds of control, as a nation took its first steps into a world that would both fear and misunderstand it. Kim Il-sung, barely 36, is no ordinary leader. His years fighting Japanese forces in Manchuria have made him a legend, his name whispered in northern villages as a symbol of resistance. Returning to Pyongyang in 1945 aboard a Soviet ship, he steps into a city eager for a new beginning. The Soviets, occupying the north since Japan's surrender, see in Kim a figure who can unite the fractured region. Picture him addressing a crowd in Pyongyang's central square, his voice steady, promising land for the landless and dignity for the oppressed. His charisma binds workers, peasants, and former guerrillas, their faces alight with the hope of a Korea free from foreign chains. Behind him, Soviet advisors nod approvingly, their influence shaping the new state's framework. The DPRK's early days are a whirlwind of transformation. Land reform sweeps the countryside, stripping estates from landlords and placing fields in the hands of peasants who have toiled for centuries. Imagine a farmer in a northern village, his calloused hands clutching a deed to land once owned by a Yongbin lord, his eyes brimming with disbelief. Factories, built by the Japanese, are nationalized, their machines humming under the direction of workers' councils. Schools open, teaching not only Hangul but the ideals of socialism, with children chanting slogans alongside their lessons. In Pyongyang, new buildings rise, blocky, utilitarian, yet proud. While portraits of Kim Il-sung appear in homes and offices, his image a constant reminder of the state's guiding hand. The Soviet influence is undeniable. Red Army officers train North Korean soldiers, their drills echoing across the hills, while advisors from Moscow help draft the DPRK's constitution, a document promising equality and progress. Yet Kim Il-sung is no mere puppet. He navigates the Soviet presence with care, blending their ideology with a distinctly Korean flavor. The concept of Juche, self-reliance, begins to take shape, a seed planted in speeches that call for a Korea beholden to no one. Picture a factory worker, her hands stained with machine oil, listening to a radio broadcast of Kim's words, her heart swelling with pride at the thought of a nation standing tall. Yet this vision comes with a cost. Dissenters, landlords, religious leaders, and intellectuals who question the new order face purges, their voices silenced in the name of unity. Life in the early DPRK is a study in contrasts. In the countryside, peasants plant rice with newfound hope, their songs carried on the wind, while in cities, workers rally to rebuild a nation shattered by occupation. Women, long marginalized, gain new roles, factory workers, teachers, even soldiers, their contributions celebrated in propaganda posters that line Pyongyang's streets. Yet the state's grip tightens. Neighborhood committees monitor loyalty, and criticism of Kim or the party becomes dangerous. Imagine a teacher pausing mid-lesson, her eyes scanning the room for signs of dissent, knowing a single word could bring suspicion. The DPRK's borders, guarded by newly trained troops, close to the south, severing ties with kin across the 38th parallel. As the DPRK takes shape, it stands as a bold experiment, a nation forged in the crucible of liberation and ideology. Pyongyang's Kim Il-sung Square buzzes with parades, the air thick with the sound of drums and the sight of red banners. But the world beyond is watching. In Seoul, Syngman Rhee's Republic of Korea claims the same legitimacy, its anti-communist fervor backed by American might. Skirmishes flare along the 38th parallel, each clash a spark in a land dry with tension. Kim Il-sung, gazing south from his office, dreams of a unified Korea under his banner, his resolve hardened by Soviet tanks and Chinese allies. The peninsula, once one, now bristles with rival ambitions, its rivers and mountains silent witnesses to a growing storm. As the stars rise over Pyongyang's newly built towers, a question lingers in the night air. Can this young nation's dreams of unity survive the clash of ideologies, or will the peninsula's divide ignite a fire that consumes them all? As the summer of 1950 dawns over the Korean peninsula, the air is thick with the scent of rain and the weight of unspoken fears. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK, barely 2 years old, pulses with the fervor of a young nation under Kim Il-sung's iron vision. Pyongyang's streets echo with the march of soldiers and the hum of factories, while across the 38th parallel, the Republic of Korea bristles with its own ambitions under Syngman Rhee. The division of the peninsula, meant to be temporary, has hardened into a scar, splitting families and dreams. Both leaders speak of reunification, but their words are laced with fire. In the quiet of early morning on June 25, 1950, that fire erupts as North Korean tanks roll across the border, igniting a war that will engulf the peninsula in flames and reshape its destiny forever. This is the story of the Korean War, a brutal clash of ideologies that left the land and its people forever changed, their hopes for unity buried beneath the rubble of a shattered dream. The war begins with a thunderous roar. North Korean forces, trained and armed by the Soviets, sweep south with terrifying speed, their T-34 tanks crushing defenses along the 38th parallel. Seoul falls within days, its streets choked with fleeing civilians and retreating South Korean soldiers. Picture the chaos, families clutching belongings, running through smoke-filled alleys, while the distant boom of artillery echoes like a storm. Kim Il-sung, emboldened by promises of Soviet and Chinese support, envisions a swift victory, a Korea united under his red banner. His troops, fueled by revolutionary zeal, push the South Korean army and their American allies to the edge of the peninsula, trapping them in a desperate pocket around Busan. But the tide turns with the arrival of United Nations forces, led by the United States. In September 1950, General Douglas MacArthur orchestrates a daring amphibious landing at Incheon, a masterstroke that cuts off North Korean supply lines. Imagine the scene. American ships unloading troops under a moonlit sky, their boots splashing through the surf as North Korean defenses crumble. The UN forces surge north, recapturing Seoul and driving Kim's army back across the 38th parallel. By late 1950, they approach the Yalu River, the border with China, their victory seeming certain. Yet the peninsula's fate is not so easily sealed. Mao Zedong, fearing a threat to China's border, sends hundreds of thousands of Chinese troops into the fray, their bugles sounding in the icy winter night. The war becomes a brutal stalemate, a grinding battle of attrition across Korea's rugged hills. The front line shifts back and forth near the 38th parallel, leaving villages and cities in ruins. Pyongyang, once a symbol of North Korea's pride, is bombed relentlessly, its buildings reduced to skeletons. Seoul changes hands 4 times, its palaces and markets shattered. Picture a farmer in a snow-dusted field, his breath visible in the cold, watching as fighter jets scream overhead, their bombs tearing the earth apart. Civilians bear the war's heaviest toll. Millions are displaced, their homes destroyed, their families torn apart. Historians estimate over 2 million deaths, military and civilian, their stories lost in the chaos of a peninsula-turned battlefield. The war's brutality is matched by moments of human courage. North Korean soldiers, many barely trained, fight with desperate resolve, their loyalty to Kim Il-sung unwavering even as supplies dwindle. In the South, UN troops, including Americans, British, and others, endure freezing winters and relentless assaults, their letters home stained with mud and hope. Tales of heroism emerge. South Korean guerrillas ambushing Chinese patrols in the mountains, American medics braving gunfire to save the wounded, and North Korean civilians hiding resistance fighters in their cellars. Imagine a young nurse in a makeshift hospital, her hands steady as she stitches a soldier's wound by candlelight, the distant rumble of artillery, a constant reminder of the war's unyielding hunger. By 1951, the fighting bogs down into trench warfare, the front line a scarred ribbon across the peninsula. Peace talks begin in Panmunjom, a village near the 38th parallel, but they drag on for 2 years, mired in distrust. Picture the negotiators, their faces grim, sitting across a table in a dusty tent, arguing over borders and prisoners while the war grinds on. The armistice, signed on July 27, 1953, ends the fighting but not the war. No peace treaty is ever signed, leaving the peninsula in a state of frozen conflict. The demilitarized zone, DMZ, a 4-kilometer-wide strip along the 38th parallel, becomes one of the most heavily fortified borders in the world, its barbed wire and minefields a stark reminder of division. The Korean War leaves Korea in ruins. The North, under Kim Il-sung, emerges battered but defiant, its cities leveled, its people hardened. The South, backed by the U.S., begins a slow rebuild, its scars a mirror of the North's. Families remain separated, their letters undelivered across the DMZ. The peninsula, once a single heartbeat, now beats with 2 rhythms, each side claiming to be the true Korea. As the dust settles over the silent battlefields, the mountains and rivers stand witness to a people's resilience and their pain. The war has ended, but its echoes linger in the hearts of those who survived, and in the eyes of a leader in Pyongyang whose dreams of conquest have turned to ash. As the stars rise over a divided land, a question hangs in the air. Can this broken peninsula ever heal, or will its wounds fester in the shadow of a new era? As the smoke of the Korean War clears in 1953, the northern half of the peninsula lies in ruins, its cities reduced to rubble and its people weary from loss. Pyongyang, once a bustling hub, is a shadow of itself, its streets scarred by bombs, its skies heavy with the silence of an uneasy armistice. Yet, from this devastation rises a vision of unyielding control, embodied by Kim Il-sung, the young leader who has weathered invasion, defeat, and the weight of a divided Korea. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK, stands at a crossroads, its future uncertain but its resolve unbroken. This is the story of the Kim dynasty's rise, a tale of iron will, revolutionary fervor, and a cult of personality that would shape North Korea into a fortress of ideology, its people bound to a leader whose image would become their sky. Kim Il-sung, now in his early 40s, emerges from the war not just as a leader, but as a symbol. The war, though devastating, has cemented his legend as the great leader who defied the might of the United States and its allies. In Pyongyang's rebuilt squares, his portraits multiply, gazing down from every wall, their eyes a constant presence. Imagine a worker pausing in a factory, his hands stained with grease, glancing at Kim's image and feeling a surge of pride, or perhaps fear. Kim's government moves swiftly to rebuild, leaning on Soviet and Chinese aid to resurrect factories and schools. The land reforms of the late 1940s deepen, with collectives replacing private farms, their fields worked by peasants now loyal to the state. The air hums with slogans of self-reliance, as Kim's vision of Juche, independence from foreign powers, takes root in the nation's psyche. Juche becomes more than a policy, it is a religion of the state. Kim Il-sung preaches that North Korea must stand alone, its destiny shaped by the will of its people and their leader. Propaganda floods the nation. Posters, songs, and radio broadcasts proclaim Kim as the dear leader, a fatherly figure guiding his children through a hostile world. Picture a schoolroom in Hamhung, where children recite Juche principles, their voices rising in unison, their textbooks filled with tales of Kim's guerrilla days. The state controls every facet of life. Newspapers, art, even personal stories, all woven into a narrative that glorifies Kim and the Workers' Party. Dissent is unthinkable. Those who question the regime, intellectuals, former landlords, or suspected spies, vanish into labor camps hidden in the mountains, their fates unspoken. The cult of personality grows with deliberate care. Kim's life is mythologized. His birth in a humble log cabin near Mount Baekdu, his victories against the Japanese, his defiance of imperialists. Statues rise across the land, their bronze surfaces gleaming in the sun, while citizens bow before them, a ritual of loyalty and fear. The Mansudi Grand Monument in Pyongyang, a towering statue of Kim Il-sung, becomes a pilgrimage site where citizens offer flowers and bow in reverence. Imagine the consolidation of power under Kim Il-sung is complete, his image inescapable. The regime enforces strict loyalty, punishing dissenters with imprisonment or worse. Imagine a family gathered in a public square, their faces painted with grief, reciting poems about Kim's greatness, only to be silenced by the secret police. The purges of the 1950s, which eliminated political rivals and perceived traitors, were brutal, with thousands disappearing into labor camps or executed. Kim's grip tightened, his vision of a socialist utopia now a sacred mission, and his family's dynasty became a cornerstone of North Korean identity. The reconstruction of Pyongyang is a testament to Kim's enduring legacy. Factories hum with new life, producing everything from textiles to weapons, all under state control. The countryside, scarred by war, sees the return of hope as land is redistributed to the masses. In the cities, new schools teach the gospel of Juche, and Kim's portraits are as ubiquitous as the stars in the sky. Yet, beneath this fervor, a shadow grows, an intricate web of surveillance, fear, and control, where every whisper is heard and every step is watched. As the 1950s draw to a close, the peninsula is a land of contrasts. a socialist dream for some, a prison for others. The DMZ, a 4-kilometer-wide scar, bristles with mines and watchtowers, a constant reminder of the war's unresolved wounds. Pyongyang's new towers rise from the ashes, a symbol of Kim's ambition, but the echoes of war linger in the hearts of the people, a silent ache for a lost unity. As the stars rise over the Yalu River, the question remains, can this fractured land ever heal, or will the Kim dynasty's grip tighten further, casting a long shadow over the peninsula's future? As the 1960s dawn over the Korean peninsula, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK, stands as a fortress of defiance, its borders sealed against a world that grows ever more distant. Pyongyang, reborn from the ashes of war, gleams with new boulevards and towering statues, each a testament to Kim Il-sung's unyielding vision. The scars of the Korean War linger, crumbled villages, orphaned children, and a people hardened by sacrifice, but the nation pulses with a fierce resolve to survive. The Juche ideology, now the heartbeat of the state, preaches self-reliance, urging North Koreans to forge their own path in a world divided by Cold War rivalries. Yet beneath the surface of this socialist dream, cracks begin to appear: economic struggles, famines, and the weight of absolute control. This is the story of North Korea's survival amid isolation, a time when the Kim dynasty tightened its grip, and a nation fought to endure against the odds, its people caught between pride and hardship. Kim Il-sung, now revered as the great leader, rules with an iron hand, his image omnipresent in every home, school, and factory. The cult of personality, carefully crafted in the war's aftermath, has grown into a national religion. In Pyongyang's Mansudi Grand Monument, his bronze statue looms over bowing citizens, their offerings of flowers a ritual of loyalty. Picture a young girl in a red scarf, her voice trembling as she recites a poem praising Kim, her heart torn between awe and fear. The state controls every facet of life. Radio broadcasts sing of Juche, schools teach Kim's revolutionary feats, and neighborhood watches report even the faintest whisper of dissent. Labor camps in the northern mountains, hidden from view, swallow those who stray, their existence a grim secret known only in hushed tones. The economy, rebuilt with Soviet and Chinese aid, hums with ambition in the early post-war years. Factories churn out steel and textiles, their smokestacks a symbol of progress. In the countryside, collectivized farms stretch across the northern plains, their workers toiling under red banners to meet state quotas. Imagine a farmer, his back bent under the sun, planting rice in a collective field, his pride in the nation's self-reliance tempered by hunger when harvests fall short. The DPRK's focus on heavy industry and military strength, a legacy of Kim's wartime resolve, builds a formidable army, its tanks and jets a deterrent against the South and its American allies. Yet this emphasis comes at a cost. Consumer goods are scarce, and daily life grows austere, with long queues for rice and cloth. As the Cold War deepens, North Korea's isolation intensifies. The Soviet Union and China, once steadfast allies, begin to drift apart, their rivalry forcing Kim to navigate a delicate balance. He leans on both for aid, but resists their influence, doubling down on Juche to assert North Korea's independence. Picture a diplomatic meeting in Pyongyang, Kim's voice firm as he negotiates with Soviet advisors, his eyes fixed on a future where his nation owes nothing to outsiders. By the 1970s, the DPRK cuts ties with much of the world, its borders a fortress guarded by soldiers and ideology. Trade dwindles and foreign visitors, save for a few from allied nations, are met with suspicion, their every move watched by state-minders. The cracks in this vision widen in the 1980s and 1990s. Economic mismanagement, coupled with the loss of Soviet subsidies after the USSR's collapse, starves the nation of resources. Factories fall silent, their machines rusting, while farms struggle against floods and drought. The Great Famine, known as the Arduous March, strikes in the mid-1990s, claiming hundreds of thousands of lives. Some estimates suggest up to 2 million. Picture a mother in a northern village, her face gaunt, rationing a handful of corn for her children, her prayers drowned by the howl of winter winds. The state, desperate to maintain control, tightens its grip, blaming foreign enemies for the hardship while urging citizens to endure. Black markets spring up, where whispers of trade with China offer a lifeline, but also a glimpse of a world beyond Kim's reach. In 1994, Kim Il-sung's death marks a turning point. His son, Kim Jong-il, inherits the mantle, his bespectacled face a new icon in a nation reeling from loss. The transition is seamless but somber, as mourning rituals fill Pyongyang's streets, citizens weeping before statues, their grief both genuine and mandated. Kim Jong-il, quieter and less charismatic than his father, leans on the military, elevating the Songun policy military first to ensure loyalty. Picture a soldier standing guard at the DMZ, his rifle steady, his heart torn between duty and the hunger gnawing at his family back home. The regime's propaganda machine churns on, painting Kim Jong-il as the dear leader, a genius guiding North Korea through crisis, even as the nation's isolation deepens. Through these decades, North Korea survives, its people enduring hardships that would break lesser spirits. Songs of Juche echo in schools, and parades in Pyongyang celebrate the nation's defiance, their synchronized steps a symbol of unity. But beneath the surface, the weight of isolation grows heavier. Families huddle in dim homes, their radios tuned to state broadcasts, while the world beyond the Yalu River moves forward, its lights dimmed by North Korea's closed borders. As the 20th century fades, the peninsula remains divided, the DMZ a silent scar. The Kim dynasty's grip holds firm, but a question lingers in the cold night air. Can a nation so isolated, so tethered to one family's vision, withstand the pressures of a changing world, or will its fortress walls begin to crumble? As the 21st century unfolds, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, DPRK, remains a land apart, its borders sealed, its people bound by the iron legacy of the Kim dynasty. Pyongyang, with its pastel-colored towers and grand monuments, stands as a carefully curated stage, where synchronized parades and towering statues proclaim the nation's defiance. The scars of the past, war, famine, and isolation, linger in the faces of its people, yet the state's narrative of resilience and self-reliance, rooted in Juche, burns brighter than ever. In 2011, Kim Jong-il's death ushers in a new era under his son, Kim Jong-un, a young leader whose ambitions and unpredictability captivate the world's attention. This is the story of modern North Korea, a nation that balances on the edge of mystery and menace, its nuclear dreams casting a long shadow over a peninsula still divided, its future as enigmatic as the mountains that cradle it. Kim Jong-un, barely 30 when he assumes power, steps into a role sculpted by his grandfather and father. His round face and confident stride, so like Kim Il-sung's, signal continuity, yet his youth hints at change. Pyongyang's streets fill with mourners, their grief orchestrated but real, as the nation buries Kim Jong-il. Picture the scene. Thousands gathered before the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun, where the bodies of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il lie in state, their tears a testament to a dynasty woven into the nation's soul. Kim Jong-un moves swiftly to secure his rule, purging rivals, most notably his uncle, Jang Song-theek, executed in 2013, ensuring no challenge to his authority. His image, like those before him, blankets the nation, from classroom walls to factory floors, a constant reminder of his omnipresence. North Korea's modern era is defined by its pursuit of nuclear power, a gambit that both isolates and empowers the regime. Kim Jong-un accelerates the program begun under his father, conducting nuclear tests that shake the earth and rattle global capitals. By 2017, the DPRK claims intercontinental ballistic missile capabilities, its launches sending tremors through Seoul, Tokyo, and Washington. Imagine a missile streaking across the night sky, its trail a fiery defiance of international sanctions, while in Pyongyang, state television broadcasts images of cheering crowds, their fists raised in triumph. The nuclear arsenal, a source of pride for the regime, is also a shield, ensuring survival in a world Kim sees as hostile. Yet it comes at a cost. Sanctions cripple the economy, cutting off trade and aid, while the nation's resources pour into weapons rather than food or infrastructure. Life in North Korea remains a study in contrasts. In Pyongyang, the elite live in relative comfort, their apartments stocked with state-approved luxuries, their children attending schools that teach loyalty alongside mathematics. The city's skyline, with landmarks like the Ryugyong Hotel, gleams as a symbol of progress. Though many buildings stand empty, their facades a mask for economic strain. Beyond the capital, life is harsher. In rural provinces, farmers toil in fields with outdated tools, their harvests barely enough to stave off hunger. Black markets, born during the famine of the 1990s, thrive in the shadows, offering smuggled goods from China, rice, clothes, even South Korean dramas, whispers of a world beyond Kim's control. Picture a merchant in a northern town, her stall hidden behind a curtain, trading DVDs for grain, her eyes darting for signs of state inspectors. The regime's grip on information is ironclad, yet cracks appear. State media paints a picture of a prosperous nation, its people united under Kim's guidance, but smuggled radios and USB drives bring news of the outside world. Imagine a young man in Hamhung, listening to a forbidden broadcast in the dark, his heart racing as he hears of South Korea's glittering cities or global calls for change. The state counters with propaganda, staging elaborate festivals like the Arirang Mass Games, where thousands perform in perfect synchrony, their movements a hymn to the regime. Yet the world watches North Korea not just as a spectacle, but as a puzzle. What drives a nation to cling so fiercely to its isolation, and what lies beneath its defiant facade? Kim Jong-un's diplomacy adds to the enigma. In 2018, he steps onto the world stage, meeting South Korea's Moon Jae-in at the DMZ, their handshake a fleeting hope for peace. Summits with U.S. President Donald Trump follow, the first such meetings in history, their images broadcast globally. Picture the scene. Kim, his smile measured, walking beside world leaders, his nation briefly open to dialogue. Yet, talks falter, sanctions remain, and North Korea retreats to its fortress mentality. Missile tests resume, and the DMZ, that scar across the peninsula, bristles with tension. The dream of reunification, cherished by families separated for decades, fades into the mist, though hope persists in whispered prayers and smuggled letters. As the stars rise over Mount Baekdu, North Korea remains a land of mystery, its people bound by a legacy that is both their strength and their burden. Pyongyang's lights burn bright, but the countryside lies in shadow, its people enduring with a resilience forged by centuries of struggle. Kim Jong-un, standing at the helm, navigates a world that watches with wary eyes, his nuclear ambitions a gamble for survival. The peninsula, divided yet unbroken, holds its breath, its rivers and mountains silent witnesses to a story still unfolding. As the night deepens, a question lingers, soft as a whisper on the wind. Can this enigmatic nation find a path to peace, or will its isolation and defiance define its destiny for generations to come?